I've been looking forward to this. Dean Radin is a researcher and an author in the field of parapsychology. He is senior scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences in Petaluma, California, and a four-time former president of the Parapsychological Association. He has held appointments at Princeton University, Edinburgh University, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, SRI International, Interval Research Corporation, and the Boundary Institute. At these facilities, Dean was engaged in basic research on exceptional human capacities, principally psi phenomena. I think many of us would group psi phenomenon such as ESP, clairvoyance, precognition, and telekinesis in the realm of science fiction as opposed to science. Despite there being little support for this research in academia, I was surprised to learn how much there actually was. The Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab spent 3 decades working on this research. SRI International has funded a large body of research in this area. Governments around the world have funded these studies for potential military applications and other uses. My curiosity about this led me to Dean Radin. I met Dean at a conference a few months ago. I was impressed with Dean, and I wanted to give him a chance to speak in front of this audience in particular. While this type of research brings an incredible amount of skepticism, I respect both Dean's scientific background and his intellectual honesty enough to listen with a discerning but ultimately open mind.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Overwatch channel on YouTube. Hey, that was an interesting intro, and I hope you'll watch the rest of that presentation. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. When you talk to atheist, I recently had a little exchange with an atheist on YouTube, and I was told basically that there's extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. But the reality is that when somebody is polarized to a position, there can never be any evidence that will change that person's position. Now, an interesting comparison to consciousness, the supernatural realm, and I guess you can call it the soul, was made by Dean Radin when he compared consciousness to the observation of consciousness to a radio. It's just a comparison. It's not meant to imply that that's how it really works. But I'd like to use it here. So if you have a radio, everybody knows that the radio receives a signal that you can't see, but it's there, and then you hear whatever that signal's broadcasting coming through the speakers on the radio. To use that as a comparison between atheism and religious fundamentalists, the atheist is convinced that all that noise the radio is making comes from inside the radio. It can't come from anywhere else. All it is the radio. And the noise, sounds, music, voices are inside that radio. This is why transhumanism will ultimately fail. If they operate on that model of consciousness, they'll never be able to replicate it, because that's not how it works. But if you're an atheist, you won't believe that. On the other hand, the religious fundamentalist is tuned into a single station on that radio. And every other station either doesn't exist or is of the devil. If you're a Christian fundamentalist, every other station has to be from Satan. That's just a little comparison. It's not meant to be taken literally or anything, but just a little way of showing you how certain people think. Now, it's about polarization. That's what it's really all about. A lot of people out there call themselves truthers lately have been throwing around that term Hegelian dialectic. And the Hegelian dialectic, they describe it as almost a strategy used against people to, keep them under control or to make them do certain things. But that's not really what it is. I think that it is simply a condition, a human condition. We tend to want to divide things, and because the entire universe is dualistic in nature, we're naturally attuned to that nature, and we tend to polarize to one of two positions if we're offered that. The strategy is to create a dialectic so you can control what people are polarized to, and polarity is between those two columns that everybody keeps talking about. In the Christian truther movement, they think that they're somehow not connected to that system. They think they're a part of it. But really, what is going on here is they're just as connected as anybody else to that dualistic system. For example, if you put an atheist and a Christian on a stage for a debate, there's your two columns. You see what I'm talking about? Now, I never started this channel here to be polarized to anything. As a matter of fact, I didn't even realize what that was until recently. But apparently what I was doing without even realizing that I was doing it was trying to keep myself centered and use my logic and also my emotional side and not be overwhelmed by either side. I was trying to find truth, and in doing so, I committed myself to not create excuses for evidence. So if you look at my earlier videos and you look at some of my newest videos, you'll see a drastic change at how I see things. And that's because I'm willing to change once I realize that I was making excuses for evidence, or I was believing things that I can no longer believe because that is not what the evidence is saying. Now, here's what I think is going on. If you take a look at scientific data and you're able to depolarize yourself so you can look at it without trying to make excuses for the evidence, I think that the science is kind of clear on the way that our universe reacts in sort of a quantum way to thoughts and intentions of people. I don't mean the whole universe. I don't know what goes on beyond Earth. But on Earth, it's clear. You can take a look at the Princeton Global Consciousness Project. You can read Dean Radin's books. Go to his website. There's links on there to scientific journals that are peer-reviewed. There's experiments that can be replicated even by people that are skeptic to prove a lot of this stuff. To the atheist, they will not prove anything to you as long as you're committed to that position. To the Christian fundamentalist, well, everything's of Satan if it's not exactly fits into your worldview. That's what I'm coming to understand. In reality, I think what's going on is you have 2 billion Christians, and an unknown number of those 2 billion are focused, praying, looking for signs of the end times, and those end time prophecies will never manifest. But what will manifest is the signs that you're looking for, because that much global consciousness, I believe, thinking, intending, putting out there into the universe what you expect to happen: tribulation, persecution, wars, rumors of wars, famines, all that stuff. I think that, and I haven't heard anybody else say this, but if a small group of elites wanted to manipulate the world, they would sure need a global consciousness to do it. And if they knew the ancient knowledge of these mystery schools, as in I'm piecing this all together, they certainly would be aware that their small elite group could never pull off that big of a change for their new world order. But surely 2 billion people thinking about the circumstances that need to happen for that, well, that's like a lot of brain power being put out there for that purpose. And I wonder what would happen. I wonder what would happen if 2 billion Christians decided to start praying tomorrow for peace and liberty and happiness. And I wonder if they didn't try to force or bend things to their worldview, if they just had a blanket, let truth come out no matter what it is, even if it's not what I believe. Let the world be a better place. Think healing thoughts. I wonder how the world would change over time if that was a consistent thing. But instead, when you go to YouTube or you read books about religion, nowadays it seems to be end times, end times, end times. And I'm telling you, look at the research, look at the scientific data. Many of you won't, I understand. And the reason is because I've come to understand this importance of not being polarized to anything, to be able to see things clearly. See, when you're committed to one side against another, and yes, Christians, that means you too, you are indeed polarizing, and you can easily demonstrate that by putting you in a room with an atheist to debate each other. You can be moved, you can be controlled that way, and you certainly can't see things clearly while you're committed to defending a belief, even when evidence is shown that some parts of that belief are false. And I don't mean that Christianity isn't a powerful spiritual force. It is. But it's also one that has rigid dogma, I guess you could say, rigid ways, and they're not yielding. So if you watch any atheist debate a Christian and the Christian debate the atheist, they'll both end up creating excuses for when they're confronted with evidence that their viewpoints are wrong. Right? The atheist can stand on the stage all day long and throw out, oh, see, look at this. What about this Bible? What about this Bible verse? The Christian fundamentalist has to prove that the Bible is inerrant, cover to cover. Or what if it isn't? And you're stuck trying to prove that position. I think that everybody sort of has a half-truth, even me. I don't believe in gurus. I don't believe that any person can tell me the absolute truth about reality or the supernatural or what exactly God wants. I know I have a built-in moral compass. I have a way of being that seems to be important. But I'm not going to find the answers that I'm looking for from any person on earth, because there is nobody. Even if they say they know the answer, and even if they're charismatic about it, I don't think they do. I think that's been proven time and time again throughout history. So once you admit that you only have half-truths, it's easy to live with. And once you depolarize yourself, it's easy to look at all this stuff without getting upset. Well, good luck with that. And I hope you can take a look at that video from Dean Radin if you're an atheist. And if you're a Christian, look at it also. And realize that everything supernatural that isn't fit into your worldview is not of Satan. It cannot be. That becomes ridiculous after some point when it's like 95% of everything out there is then, because your worldview is certainly easily broken by the way the world works. Well, that's all I have to say for now. I hope this made sense. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.